Okay. Take one, action. Hey, there we go. Welcome, everybody. This is SharePoint Dev Weekly, episode 12, right, Waldek? This is 12. Yep, I think it's 12.
15, right? 12?
I hopefully it's correct.
12.
We'll see. When I'm editing the video. This week we were finally able to get our good friend Erwin on the call as well. Yay!
I made it.
So
I made it.
Finally, we've been trying to get you on the session for quite a few times. So I'm just gonna put that one over there as well. Now, Erwin, will you do a quick intro on who you are and why has it been so hard to get you on the call?
Well, okay. Who am I? Erwin van Hunen. I'm a Dutchman living in Sweden, or actually, technically speaking, I'm not even a Dutchman anymore. I have a Swedish passport, and I work as a product manager at Rencore together with Waldek. So it's nice to see my colleague here. And I work mainly in the area of transformation, modernization. Those kind of topics are my thing.
So as a product manager,
As a product manager,
is it the same thing as in Microsoft, which basically means you're not doing anything, you're just creating slides?
Oh, no, it's actually different at Rencore. Actually, we do things. Yeah. No, I'm also actually technically involved, or mainly technically involved in the whole product range. Yeah. So yeah. And then on the side, sorry.
I'm also trying to understand what I actually talk about, so that's fair.
and then well, the people watching this probably know me the most from PNP.
Yeah. So you are you like the statement. You are the father of PNP PowerShell.
Well, like the statement, it's sort of forced upon me by you, in fact, actually. But yeah, I am the person that created the initial version. It makes me sound so old. I think the father of, it's just, well, you don't call me the grandfather, but yeah, I started PNP PowerShell back in the time, and that's how.
It's not like your grandpa Steve, grandpa Peshka, right? Because
no,
grandpa
exactly.
Yeah. So not that many younger SharePoint people know who Steve Peshka, but he's really the grandpa of SharePoint.
Exactly.
Anything in SharePoint, really.
By the way, if you during the recording see me wave in a weird way, then it's just because you guys started to freeze, because it happened now several times already. Yeah. It's like for some reason my connection is a bit choppy. Then you know.
No, well, I guess I would say that is probably efficiency. That if we do not move enough, our connection freezes because there is nothing to show, right?
Okay, that's how it works. That explains a lot. That's why I'm always getting kicked out of the PMP webcasts and
because you don't move enough.
Community calls. Yes, I'm not talking to. You're not talking anything important. Poof.
Yeah, exactly. Intelligence, right?
Yes, artificial intelligence. So, okay, we need to go to today's topics pretty soon anyway. But Waldek, let's start with you. What have you done this week related on SharePoint development? So let's do a quick round of a.
This week I haven't done really that much because it's still on Monday. Is it?
Well, it's the week after the.
Yeah, so
it is Monday.
Recently,
yes, it is Monday, 5th of November.
Correct. November the 5th. Yes. So last week I worked on some of the docs for the upcoming release of SPFX. There will be one, and then two, we released a new version of the Office 365 CLI. We have some new commands around teams, around classification for sites, and some other things. So yeah, and then we have quite a few outstanding PRs. So more commands are coming as well. So I think that would wrap up my last week the best. Erwin?
Before you could, actually, just a kind of a. Last week we did a preview of pages. We're not going to do any preview of 1.7 stuff this week in this call, because we do many reasons. Just out of curiosity, what were the topics which you created for the documentation side? So anything what you can open up. Well, I know what you did, but for the audience of the video, because I asked you to do that.
Also, so far I worked on the docs for dynamic data. So the ability to connect components, web parts to extensions, the other way around. There will be 1, 2 off the top of my head, the subscription to list, so that in real time, when there's a changes in the docs in library, you can react to it. So there'll be 2, and then 3. The thing that is still work to be done are isolated web parts. So basically, how can you get a set of permissions to APIs secured with Azure AD and not share them with anything else on the page? So I think that would be really invaluable ability for people who build things on SPFX and have to communicate with APIs secured with AAD, which is basically everybody.
Yep, we briefly touched this in the last community call last Thursday, but the demo didn't work in eDoc, so we were unable to really walk through the whole process. Well, except we showed Azure AD that it was dynamically, we created an Azure AD application for the enterprise whenever you have a web part which has the isolation enabled. And that's actually pretty cool because it gives you then a unique application to manage permission in the Azure AD, which will then be highly beneficial and opens up an interesting set of future possibilities, what we want to do. So anyway, Erwin, let's jump on you. What have you been doing on the past week?
Every time I hear Waldek talk about the CLI, I'm a tiny bit jealous when he says commands, because he can use the word commands. I have to call them commandlets, which makes them sound smaller, doesn't it? It's like, I have a little commandlet here.
But they are more powerful because you are in a power
shell. Okay, okay. It does balance out.
Bash things like.
Good point. I've been working on actually renaming a bunch of commandlets. There's a discussion that started, actually, was it last week or the week before that with Vesa when we were creating a video. And that is one of the new things that we introduced, the hierarchy commandlets to provision basically tenant templates. And actually the name gives it away. It's actually a tenant template you're applying, not necessarily a hierarchy. So we decided to rename the whole set of commandlets. Rename is a big word. We created aliases for them, basically meaning that the old commandlets still work if you're used or you have scripts with the old commandlet names in there, but we will rename the new ones to being apply tenant template, etc., 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 etc. That makes a lot of sense. And we're still a bit discussing, and I don't want to jump into will this happen or not, but discussing if we should rename the provisioning template to site template, which is a very interesting discussion. Because we know
it gets really emotional. Templates. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Exactly. So are we doing a takeover here from the concept of a site template from SharePoint? Because
yes,
SharePoint really
dot STPs, right?
No,
a kitten died.
No,
sorry.
No animal were hurt during the recording of this show.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing I've been doing for PNP. And then on a private thing, I want to just mention this. I've been actually working with InfoPath.
Ooh.
Suddenly it was very silent. Yeah, so from a Rencore perspective, I work with things with InfoPath. Can't be too specific there right now, but yeah. So that's
related on transformation of InfoPath.
Transformation of InfoPath, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that means that we have to understand what an InfoPath form is all about on the inside. So we basically break it open and analyze the insights. Which is, when you do that, you start to understand why Microsoft deprecated it.
It was so good; it could do everything. It was too good.
I think that it's a fair point. There's always a community. There's a lot of community people who might be saying, "Why did we get rid of the site template? Save site as a template doesn't work, and all of that stuff." Or the InfoPath, that was brilliant. Well, maybe for the one deployment or the two deployments, but there's typically a much bigger thinking behind of deprecating anything. It's not like on some random Monday morning somebody came and said, those STP files, I don't like them. Let's do something else. No. There's typically a reason why these things are not working or enabled or whatever. So, or as an example, the save site as a template is not there for modern sites. It is taken away by design, and it's not because we wouldn't love to give that capability. It's taken away because that capability does not work, at least for now, when you do that. So there was a random blog post, which now that I remember that somebody was promoting, well, you could still go to the URL and you'll get don't. There is a reason for it.
Exactly.
Classic things. So on my side, obviously working on 1.7 documentation, verification, everything else. I just finalized today. Well, it's it's a bit more thing missing. The getting started Hello World tutorial for creating a Microsoft Teams tab using a SharePoint framework. So, and it's insanely easy. It's just mind-blowing how easy creating custom tabs will come to be in Microsoft Teams, because the old way of doing Microsoft Teams development, nothing wrong with that either, but it always had the challenge of you needed to basically create a web application, host it somewhere as a Azure application or whatever, and we all know, we've been ex-consultants, or I'm an ex-consultant, at least recovering consultant, working with customers. It's surprisingly difficult for people to get a random Azure AD application. It's not like that in an enterprise application scenario. And then setting up the implementation there, everything else. And then you create a manifest XML file, you create a zip file, and then you get it up and running on the Microsoft Teams, and whoops, you can actually start using that. Really, the challenge is the deployment and the complexity of getting that Azure side up and running. Azure isn't that difficult, but still, in many cases, it's the logistics actually getting even that application in enterprises to use. Now, with SharePoint Framework web parts, it's nothing more than really running the SharePoint, creating the web part, and then basically publishing that to be available from the app catalog. And poof, you have a ready-to-be-used functionality in Microsoft Teams, and that's it. It's just wow. And
first time I did it, built one of those, I was like, really? Is that it? Is really nothing more? No, nothing more.
You were Erwin was in a dev kitchen.
So yeah, it was a dev kitchen.
That was in August, wasn't it? Early August, July.
July.
That was July, because I was on family vacation. I prioritized my family.
Yes, you weren't there.
Yes.
So how would you know what he actually did? Maybe he did some other. Maybe he did some other thing.
Yeah.
You weren't there.
Yes, indeed. That's fair. That is fair. That is fair. So, Vesa, would you like to skip your family vacation now that we rescheduled this on the end of July?
Yes, of course.
So,
of course not.
Otherwise, I would not have a family if I would keep on doing that. Anyway, so let's actually jump on to this week's topic. So let me share my screen and let's talk about this stuff. This week's findings. We actually have quite a lot of community items this week, which is good. So let me actually click that one over there, and then we're good to go. So one Microsoft asset. So let me actually, where did I lost the one link. So one second. So this one is actually a TechNerd blog post in a SharePoint community blog from Mark Cashman, related on new resource center page to help to build a modern intranet on a SharePoint and Office 365. And it's really around introducing this new site, which is around building a modern intranet on a SharePoint and Office 365. And basically, we are collecting all of our references, reference cases, customer cases, helpful guidance on how to guidance in a single location. Obviously, the SharePoint Starter Kit is there as well, because it's really easy, a convenient way of getting a really nice looking portal up and running. And then links on the resources and what is a hub site planning, and then that goes to the docs related on hub sites or development topics and so on. So you have one location where you can actually find what's relevant related on building modern SharePoint intranets in Office 365. So really cool stuff. And obviously we'll see more and more creating stuff here as well, related on how would you do, what is the role of portals, what is the role of Microsoft Teams, and how do you integrate those together and all of that, because you can mix and match them together. So it's nice to have a own portal site for a landing page for this content in here. Cool. Now that was the only kind of Microsoft topics. Then we wanted to go through a lot of community topics this week, which is always a good thing, and that there's plenty of people who are doing this. So this one actually came this morning from Chris O'Brien. So I'm going to zoom in, and you guys can probably see when I'm actually zooming. But it's a something what Chris has been doing in the past as well. So he's kind of creating this slide, which is called Top of the Mind on that particular month. And what is the kind of from his perspective, those things what people should be concentrating on and what people should be using. And on the SharePoint Framework side, SharePoint Framework, obviously the big things are what we released in 1.6, so calling the Azure AD secured function from SharePoint Framework, and then calling an Azure function from SharePoint Framework using a DHCP client. That's a really super powerful model. And most likely in the future, in our documentation, we should probably spend some time on a design patterns of the custom solution, because really explaining how you should have your business logic in Azure function rather than in your client-side code in a certain scenarios. And then you call the Azure function, which is doing the heavy lifting, and then that calls back for you or securely delivering the value for SharePoint Framework web port. So super cool stuff. And now that it's finally available, for years it's been the holy grail, and quoting myself, it's the holy grail of SharePoint online development. You can securely call APIs. So finally we are getting there.
Now you can, and
what?
Yeah, exactly. And now we can, and then what? Like, yeah.
But now you can securely access your data, your enterprise data from SharePoint Online. I think that's really the key. You can securely call an enterprise API, which is then exposing your enterprise data through Azure function to SharePoint Online, to Microsoft Teams, to whatever surface you want, which is hosted in cloud. That's a super, super powerful thing. Even up to the level of getting information from on-premises using whatever it used to be called, the bridge between Azure to on-prem, the service bus. It used to be called service bus.
Yeah, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but I think that the other week we had a blog post reference to Laura.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good.
She had a post on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Coming back on other stuff. So on SharePoint, implementing a custom site design, which calls a flow to apply a PnP template, because still the site scripts are not necessarily fulfilling all of the business requirements. So calling a PnP applying a PnP template then is a workaround for that. So getting a more complex stuff available on the site. We're going to actually touch that later on the discussions as well. And then implementing a JSON and view formatting as a one option. The one thing what people need to remember with these things is that when you implement something using the view and column formatting, end user or with the editing rights in that list can actually break that. So that's one consideration related on, should I do actual code-based stuff using SPFX, or should I do using the column formatting or view formatting?
And I guess that you can see it from two sides, right? So you can see it like you said, they can break things, but you could also say they can adjust it to their needs.
Absolutely. That's one way. The other way of putting that it empowers the end user.
Exactly. And this is the whole point, right?
Yes. Okay. There's two perspectives in every single discussion, which is fair. Azure functions in general, absolutely a big thing to understand how they actually work, and they're evolving super fast as well. There's cool stuff there. Azure Functions version 2.0 came out, which, by the way, does no longer support PowerShell, right? That's still a that's an ongoing discussion.
What was that, Erwin?
No. Just
okay.
In my throat.
Right.
Sure. And then on the Power Platform, creating custom connector to call Azure function from Power Apps and Flow makes sense. Again, you have your business logic in Azure function or exposed through the Azure function in a secure way. You want to call that. And then implementing on-premises data gateways for Power Apps and Flow and Power BI. So basically exposing the data again, business data, using then Power Apps or Flow or Power BI. Power BI, as an example, can access the on-premises data using data gateway. Now, do you want to do that, or do you want to actually get the data closer to the Azure function and then expose that from there? Debatable. And then if you really need to have a functionality on top of that, then you fall back on the SharePoint framework. But I think it's a nice set of tooling. It actually explains the modern tool set at November 2018. So good work from Chris on this one.
Yeah, nice.
Store image from a Power Apps and Camera pen control in the SharePoint. Well, why not? Yeah.
It's a nice task list to follow. Like I say, what will I look into this month? Then you take this,
That's true. What are the things what I should know or be capable of implementing this month, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do all of that in single month, to be honest, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it is. Will he post one in December too?
We'll see. We'll see.
We can ask Chris. So Chris, please post another one in December.
Exactly.
Yes. What has been changed? What got chopped and what got added? So that's actually interesting.
Well, I guess that may be based on if by the end of the year, I mean, depending on timing. Sure. If SharePoint Framework 1.8.7 would be released before he would put up the next post, then I would assume that it would be included in there. Sure. And that might give another new set of things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely.
Yep. Good point.
Sure. And it will be out before end of this year. Absolutely, it will be. I know the date, but I can't explain.
So, Chris, could you please hold off with posting the new list of things to learn until
until 1.7 is out?
Yeah.
Cool. While we're doing this, I'm going to do something extremely orthodox. I'm going to go and pick up a coffee while we're chatting on the next topic.
Like you have never done that before.
I've never done this before. I've never done this before. So now let's talk about the PNPM with SPFX. So what is a PNPM? Can you, Waldek, explain quickly on the audience what is PNPM?
So PNPM is a manager for packages that you use with Node. So it's kind of the same thing as NPM. You might have heard about NPM. There's also Yarn, and there's also PNPM. And if you compare the three of them, the difference between PNPM is that it uses linking. So when you create a project, and for which you need packages, it will not copy the packages to project, but it will create a link to the packages that you've already have in your cache. So as such, the amount of space you actually need on a disk decreases a lot because you will only have one copy of a package.
Yeah, per solution.
And it's fast.
Yeah.
No, not per solution. You will have each one instance of your package on machine or version of package.
Yes,
regardless of the number of solutions.
That's really the key, regardless of the solutions. And if you, as an example, if you pull down the, let's say, PNP samples on the web parts, every single solution of those will replicate some of the packages, right?
Exactly. So so if you wanted to run multiple samples, then you would basically have to restore dependencies for each one of them, and you would get a copy of all dependencies for each sample. Whereas with this, you will get them once, and then the only thing that it would pull down are dependencies unique to a sample.
Yeah.
So as such, it saves you space on the disk and saves you time because you don't need to wait for it to restore all dependencies every time.
So, well, like if I say I start from a blank scratch environment and I use the PNPM. By the way, maybe that's nothing to do with us. PNPM.
No.
It's,
no.
Yeah, I found it first time
PNPM
because my mind is like reading PNP.
No, it's PNPM.
NPM. I know, but it just saying. But so if I start like I have a blank environment, nothing there, and I use PNPM, and I create my first SPFX solution, which will be like 200-300 meg, depending. And then I create my second one immediately after that. Usually same thing.
It will be like
that
snap.
A few kilobytes big. Max.
Correct.
So, and in the engineering and SharePoint engineering, we actually use PNPM. So we do not use NPM, we use PNPM as the package manager by default as the engineers. So because there are certain, it's a relatively big solution structure what we're maintaining together with SharePoint and then SPFX and everything else, making sure that everything is linked properly. So,
question: if you share code base with multiple people, they all have to use PNPM.
I think the PNPM uses still package JSON.
Okay.
Correct.
So
correct.
I think that is still the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. So the whole structure is identical. It's just actually at that moment in time where the files are located. Then we're talking about links.
Yeah.
Instead of the actual file. Okay. Cool.
Cool. Quite a few things to go through still. We need to speed up, otherwise we'll be here for the whole next 2 hours as well. Like last time with Bert. It's on me. So we wanted to this be 25 minutes and then it's 48. Pretty close. So Velin had a awesome article related on REST API usage for creating copying and moving SharePoint files and folders. And this is relatively new APIs, relatively new functionalities in UI, and how you can actually take advantage of them. Now, technically, officially, we haven't actually documented these REST APIs, so
so it's unsupported.
It's supported in a I don't know how to put that. So officially, if it's
there,
supported,
you could use it.
Exactly. If it's documented, it is 100% supported. Now, our REST API documentation level is horrible, and we're trying to figure out how to fix this in the future. But it's every single new functionality what is coming in, we're trying to make sure that it has the documentation for it. Right now, for this stuff, we don't. So, which is a pity. But Velin is explaining how to take advantage of this operations. So, good stuff. Now,
just moving a little comment on this one. I'm actually looking into embedding these in PowerShell commandlets too. We have some rudimentary copy and move commandlets, but they use the CSAM API. It's a bit limited, especially when you go cross-site collection things. These APIs seem to be richer and more capable of doing that. And so I'm looking into actually wrapping them into a commandlet so people can easily use them from PowerShell if they want to.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Makes sense. Cool. Then we had how to create a custom responsive SharePoint list views with view formatters. And this is really around the view formattings, which we talked about in the context of Chris's blog post as well. So we released a new set of additional samples, which are in the GitHub. So if we actually open up this one, I think we talked about this one potentially last week as well.
I think so too.
Basically, we have released a new set of GitHub samples underneath the SP Dev column list formatting, right? I think it's list formatting. Do we have a list? Come on. Anyway, so this is a blog post from Todd, who's one of the persons behind of the implementing all of that and some of these new samples, and basically just explaining how the samples are working. They are fully responsive as well, and they're taking advantage of the column and view formatting samples and how they actually work as well. So cool stuff, really nicely, and really empowers the end users, so to say.
Is that the theme of today? Empowerment?
Yes.
Come on.
Empowerment, of course.
my ex-consulting terminology is like
we're all ex-consultants here.
Yes, we are.
We speak.
I'm still recovering consultant after 4 years still. Anyway, so this one is from AC, Andrew Connell. AC has been in the show as well, which is around don't be alarmed by vulnerability. I can't pronounce that properly.
Vulnerabilities.
Just say it really fast.
After running npm install. That's pretty good. But this is really around the fact that if you have an older version of SharePoint framework, and whenever there are, let's say, potential vulnerabilities in those packages, you might see these warnings in the npm. And should you be concerned? Should you not be concerned? And a discussion related on that one. There was a pretty passionate discussion on this one with AC and Waldek on Twitter. What was the conclusion on that?
Well, we didn't really reach a conclusion because at the end, AC recorded another video, which I'm not sure if he links from that. But I mean, let's agree that we disagree on the stance. Period.
Okay, fair point.
To keep really long discussion short.
Okay, so and I quickly explain what is the cause of these things is that basically SharePoint Framework is using external third-party packages as well, and whenever there
a
is
lot of them,
that is absolutely sure. Whenever we run the npm install, that's why it takes quite a long time for the solution package to get up and running. Now, those packages which are coming in, Microsoft do not own all of those packages. We are using external packages, and in those external packages, there might be potential security challenges or threats or concerns, which are then basically surfaced as a vulnerabilities in the list when you run that npm install or on the audit command. So that's basically what happens on the background. And then the discussion is, should you as a developer, as a architect know and validate every single package what we are shipping as Microsoft, or should you only validate those which you actually add to your solution packages by yourself, right? And that's an interesting yes and no.
You could ask yourself that, yeah. But
yes.
I mean, you can't do anything about the SPFX packages. I mean, you're not shipping them. You're just consuming them.
Yeah, but that is irrelevant.
Well, if it's reporting a thread,
I mean, if they post a thread, I'm like the other day, right? There was an issue with one of packages that are related to Babel, and that thing would steal npm-rc files that you have on a disk. So even though you don't ship Babel to production, it's still an issue you have to fix, because otherwise you would leak all your passwords that allow you to access your private repos.
Yeah.
So how we can, if one of those packages is referenced by SPFX, how would you fix those?
You wouldn't. The only thing that you can do is to not use the version that is affected. Period. I mean,
so you would go back on versions on the previous version of SharePoint framework, or then you wait a fix from Microsoft.
Or you use it in a VM, or you isolate it, or you work.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't really say like, oh, okay, listen, I cannot go to the next version for reasons. I cannot go back a version for reasons, but I still need to continue to work.
Yeah, but I mean,
you have to isolate your environment.
Yeah, but I mean, it all starts with knowing what you are exposed to. It could be the case that of the 287, maybe even 2 apply, maybe none apply. But unless you go through them, you have no idea. That's the whole point, right?
Or you have a service or something else which goes through them for you. So you'll get a high level, let's say, thumbs up or something.
Summary. Exactly. So, I mean, like, sure, it's not how, but in the end, you should make a choice based on what you know, and not assume it's going to be fine.
No.
Which is fair. It has to be an only decision to make that happen.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to say that, and maybe Waldek doesn't agree with me, but like, okay, when it comes to the packages that are referenced by SPFX, I'm like, yeah, okay, should be okay relatively. But I do find that any package that I include myself, because I need it in my code, that one should be scrutinized by me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That is my responsibility, because I decide, and that's also something I'm shipping. It's not like that is being hosted by Microsoft. It's like me shipping that in my solution. So I need to know what it is doing. And if that one shows up as a vulnerability, then I need to take action there. I need to figure out what, and that sounds much easier than it is, but I need to figure out what it is
doing. Obviously, any package what we reference in the native SharePoint framework code or SharePoint Online code is being vetted by our legal and our security teams as well. So sure. The situation always evolves and it might change on a day-to-day basis, but originally they have been actually vetted by the team, and then they keep on evolving after that as well. But it is let's put it this way, this is a topic and discussion which people should be aware of. Is that the right way of putting it?
Yeah.
And knowing this decision based on being aware of the concern. So.
Exactly. And I mean, it is like with any risk. Just because that there is a risk doesn't mean you have to fix and mitigate all of them. It's okay if you say, I am fine with the risk. But make the choice based on what you know and not on assumptions or ignorance.
Yep, absolutely. I do agree on that. These things are never black and white. There's no such thing in business, so that's fair. We will never ship this code unless there's 0 bugs. Yeah, sure. There's never a solution which has 0 bugs. So, and at this point, somebody says, "What? What do you mean?" Anyway, moving on topic. Yes. Some things what we have learned after being 20 years on the business. Anyway, code security audit using NPM audit, and this is more around. Come on, now I'm missing Liam talking about the exact same topic around from a slightly different perspective, but also talking about the fact that there are how you should be approaching these potential security issues. So, but a good reference, have a read of both of them and understand what it actually means for your business as well. Now, SPFX extension convert to PDF. So this is a good stuff from Anoop related on how to implement a list view command set, which will then execute an Azure function, which in the Azure function, it actually uses then Microsoft Graph to do an operation for a file and save that as a PDF. Now, technically, that SharePoint framework solution could have actually called the Graph API without the Azure function in between, but there might be reasons or whatever why we want to call the Azure function in between. So it's a nice technology demo, and I think if I remember correctly, this code is also available somewhere, if I remember correctly.
Yes, there is a link all the way down. There is a link to the GitHub repo, I think. Yep.
Yep, and we'll add absolutely those links on the video recordings as well. But great stuff. Good example of a scenario which potentially, why wouldn't we have this exposed natively in the list?
I was about to say that. Yeah, why did this sound so relatively trivial?
Yeah,
that everything's there. But
it's like, do we want to have? Does every single customer want to have convert to PDF capability in their library visible for the end users or not? I don't know. So
if that would be a reason, then there would be no functionality in SharePoint at all.
But I mean, you can already create flow that does that, right? So
can use a flow.
Maybe you don't even need to code that. You can just do it in flow. I assume.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
there's several ways.
There's several ways of achieving the same. Now, moving on things. Next. Tom had a nice discussion related on tips and tricks for automating SharePoint site provisioning with PnP. And this is around how do you combine the PnP PowerShell with site designs and site scripts, then using flow and storage queues and all of that. So that's the basic example in high level what we have in the documentation as well. But he has some additional tips and tricks and explanation how do you keep the template. To be fair, we just talked about this one in the team earlier today, that when you export an out-of-the-box site, a clean site, you should not actually have this out-of-the-box site columns and content types in it. So it's clearly a bug on the PnP engine side, which we need to clean. Partly. Well, we need to investigate, let's put it this way.
Exactly. If it's a bug or it could be expected.
If you haven't modified the site, you should not get the out-of-the-box content types as an export.
Fair enough.
So that's in theory how it works. But there's a good around the tips. For example, how do you clean up the PnP site templates? How do you get rid of the stuff? How do you make it much simpler and easily testable? How do you modularize your PnP templates as an example? Really good idea as well. So good stuff from Tom. Now, moving on topics, and just to be aware of that we don't spend too much time on this. So this is a discussion between Office 365 and Miguel. Sorry.
Miguel.
So we appreciate you're spreading the word. What's the new feature most exciting about that? This question is around the SharePoint 2019. And that's really around, this is good reply related on the fact that now in SharePoint 2019, we introduced the modern team sites and communication sites also on premises. So your end users do not necessarily even know are they in a on-premises site or in a SharePoint Online site, because the experience is exactly the same, and which is a good. That's how it should be. So you have that nice hybrid platform where people can move from on-premises to the cloud and back from on-cloud to the on-premises without the end user being highly confused on the, hey, why does the UI look different? So really good stuff.
Nope.
Next one, we wanted to actually touch this. So this one is from Ben. Just to mention, would it be really good to see some exams around the Power Platform or Office 365 Dev Platform, SPFX, site design, Microsoft Graph? Now, this is, there's multiple discussion for it. A lot of us are working with no way to prove our skills in, and that is a really good reminder on why these certificates do actually matter. So you can actually go to the customer and say, well, a customer can actually ask a list of certificate the developer team has on a specific area to verify that those people are capable of delivering. So that's one way of watching what's the value of certificates, and also from the person who's achieving the certificate, it's also the nice acknowledgement, obviously, on yes, I was able to do that. My best acknowledgement, as an example, still is absolutely the number one thing which I will remember the rest of my life is Microsoft Certified Master for SharePoint, the program which doesn't exist anymore. But I still remember the first time back in 2008, and that's 10 years ago, and that's horrifying. I got my first MCM achievement, 3 weeks training and delivering, and well, actually, I was delivering on the first probation as well. I had one small piece on that one, but getting then acknowledged and that I was one of the first ones who got passed. That was Brilliant.
I'm with you there for obvious reasons, because you've been training me in that MCM thing. So, but the challenge with this is the biggest challenge I see here, which from what I understand is also one of the reasons that the MCM doesn't exist anymore, is that the world is changing so fast. Let's say you introduce a certification or something for SPFX, you would also almost have to introduce okay, I'm certified in SPFX 1.1.
Yep.
And compare 1.1 with 1.7, different.
It's different.
And that was that. Yeah. So the speed is so fast. And let me do this on live as well. I do apologize. I have a meeting starting right now, so I will actually send a reminder for the person that I will be a few minutes late. So there we go. There we go. 1 second, and we get everything recorded. So this is live.
Vesa is apologizing live.
Yes, there we go.
For being late.
So for talking too much. Happens quite often. But like you said, the problem is really the speed of innovation and speed of the engineering pushing stuff. And then the organization which is responsible of the certificates is a different organization. So how could they be up to date on what are we shipping? Because we're shipping stuff so fast. The 1.6 of SharePoint Framework came out a few weeks before Ignite. So we're pretty soon releasing 1.7. We've been doing development during this previous months hectically. Now we get it out. How could they evolve the certification so fast that it would be available to Ben? We would have to validate the answers and everything. It's really hard. I
could see a model where you say okay, I'm certified in SPFX for 2018. And in 2019, that expires. So after a year, and I will have to do a small refresher exam or something like that. And that makes me certified for 2019.
Or 2 years. Context. Or
but 2 years is almost too long, I think.
Yeah,
almost.
It's a decade almost in IT.
So. Exactly. I mean, in the old classic SharePoint world with the server-side object model and everything, I mean, and their 3-year release cycle, that worked. But in this case, it doesn't. So you have to have a much faster release cycle. That will put a lot of stress. It will also cost a lot. People will have to invest in training. They will have to, And who would be the people who are responsible for keeping the material up to date? Well, you would be. No, but we don't have time to do that because we are responsible for shipping the thing. So, and then we would have to have meetings with somebody who's responsible of keeping things up to date. And but does Microsoft not have unlimited resources?
Yes, sure we do. Sure,
some say.
But there's 120,000 employees in Microsoft. Yeah, but everybody is busy. It's not like they're sitting there waiting for somebody to ask help. So
I like the idea. I like the idea of having some certification in place that helps you with, especially now that we have classic and we have modern, the modern way of doing things that you could get. But it's very difficult to implement.
It's really hard.
But I mean, on the other hand, on Azure side, things evolve really fast too, and there are exams in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair.
There is still some room for improvement.
There's always room for improvement.
There you go.
Always improve. It's not about being perfect. It's about improving. Now, a few more things. So this is from Alex, a really good reminder and a blog post related on how the versioning works on SharePoint Framework solution. This was actually generated from a discussion which we had on the Twitter with Alex, related on, hey, I updated my solution in the app catalog. Why did my new version immediately got available in every single site? And the answer is that is actually by design. So whenever you have the JavaScript files and CSS assets and everything else, they are getting immediately updated when you put your stuff in a new version to the app catalog. And this is because whatever instances you have in your tenant, they are actually referencing the JavaScript files which are located in the app catalog. So there's only one instance of the JavaScript files which are getting referenced. Now, if you upgrade, when do you need to have an upgrade? You need to have an upgrade operation if you have site-level feature framework operations, which are getting then deployed on things. Now, and what happens when you upload a new file? I know I saw Waldek being like, when you drag and drop a new version of SPFX file to the app catalog, by default, we actually update the reference of the JavaScript files to a different GUID, and that will then a different unique name. And whenever there's an existing instance on a page which is referencing that particular client-side ID, we will resolve the new JavaScript file for you for that page, and that is getting rendered from the page. Now,
I would blame all of that actually on the manifest. Because
sure.
Files, you can have the versions of them, and every time you build, you will get a new hash. So that would have a unique name. But the manifest, you can have only one of that, and that points to a different set of files.
And that's by design, so that we have a one centralized way of managing all of the instances across the hundreds of thousands of sites. But if you're using a feature framework, if you have site level stuff, then those are the things where you need to actually potentially use an app update or ASP.pkg file update on a site level. Now, do you want to do that? That's a different discussion. We support tenant-wide deployment, we support tenant-wide activation and all of those options as well. I would more be looking into doing a tenant-wide deployment options for majority of the stuff what I actually have. So using feature framework feels bad at the 2018, even though
but then you still need to have site level
sure, in certain scenarios you might
assets
need to
for some things like a list, and then there's no other way to go to do it.
It's not a black and white discussion. There's no this is the recommendation, this is the bad thing to do. No, it really depends on the business scenario again. But the whole point of this blog post is to remind how it actually works. We do have a video, YouTube video on this one, and that's recorded way back, which is explaining how it works as well. Now, a final piece on the community side, and we've been going way too long again, is a great video blog from David again around the SharePoint column formatting. Todd was touching this earlier in this discussion as well. So how to build hyperlinks in Visual Studio Code. And these are super valuable videos from David, and they really show in practice how to get started with this stuff. Super cool stuff. Cool. And that's all we kind of do on that side. So let me actually stop sharing what we wanted to do quickly, because Erwin, you've been on the screen so many times on the background screen.
Everyone has seen me before, but
yes, exactly. So we wanted to get you back online there. So we have a European SharePoint conference coming up pretty soon. And let's see how this happens. These are just pictures from the European SharePoint conference last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We did a keynote in the Vienna, and last year as well, the dev keynote on the SharePoint conference. And it was me being kind of the host and then inviting people to do demos. And I have a bad habit of then always jumping in. To be fair, it's by design. That's how we want to do interactivity. But it's always the reaction is always really good.
Well, he calls it by design.
Yeah, exactly. But Erwin's face there in the background doesn't agree with that. It's like,
well, the thing
could you please let me do my demo?
Yes. Well, I have to admit, usually when we do these sessions together with Vesa, then we talk about and then you just jump in where needed.
Yeah. Yes.
But he
except that he jumps every
exactly. The thing when needed, that's too vague. We have to define it a bit better.
Yeah.
Because you see, Paolo has the same challenge there.
Or actually, fair point. Waldek had the exact same.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's fun to put you guys on stage.
Yeah. And European SharePoint conference is coming pretty soon. We'll have a dev keynote. Jeff Deeper will start. We'll have a keynote right after Jeff's session, and we'll have a similar kind of multiple people presenting, doing live demos, keynote thingy, showing cool stuff. Luca will be there as well. Luca Bandinelli, my team member, father of SPFX in certain level. Sounded bad. Sorry, Luca. Well, he's one of the guys who've been there from a day one for SPFX, and to be fair, I've been there from a day one for, well, not precisely on a day one, slightly later.
Day two.
Day two. Trying to change. My responsibility was more on landing the story of SPFX from a day one when it was available externally, but then there was other people who were responsible for basically the underlying planning. Cool. Any last words from you guys?
We've been talking way too long.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. But hopefully interesting, super cool stuff. Once again, from a community, thank you everybody for your contributions. You will find the links behind of the video behind of the video.
Below.
Below the video, if you're interested in any of the other topics. Thank you, everybody. We'll come up with a new video within
next week.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Have a good one. Bye. Thanks, Erwin.